Hey everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. And we've got Bruce Frantzis on the line. Can you hear me, Bruce?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. And Paul Palante is dialing in from, are you in Virginia or somewhere down
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Okay.
cool Virginia night.
All right, great. Welcome, Paul. And people are just starting to show up. I see, I think 150 people online here. There is a chat box there. What would really help me to know that you guys can hear me, so that make sure that like my audio is okay. If you can type in maybe where you're dialing in from, that would be awesome, and show where everybody's calling in from. Just type that in the chat box. There we go. Montreal, Florida, sounds good. Maine, awesome, way up there. Texas, Missouri, Buffalo, Idaho, Boston, Massachusetts. Probably not a lot of Europeans. I know it's really late there. If you're listening to this on the replay, Bruce is in Hawaii, so it makes it really difficult for us to hit the European time, but hopefully you're getting us on the replay. Denver, Sacramento, South Dakota. There's a UK, Yorkshire, Poland.
Somebody's up late in Germany. I saw a couple in there in the UK.
Eastbourne, looks like Sydney, Tampa. So welcome everybody. We're really glad you're here today. Let me give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be talking about today and why we're here. Let me change screens here. And at any time you can type questions into the chat box. There's also a Q&A bar down there, and you can type in questions. And the purpose of this webinar is to get to as many of your questions as possible that's relevant to the topics today. We had a webinar about a week ago, and we announced both that we were releasing a 5 Elements program, and also that we're going to be opening up a new training center in the Denver, Boulder area. Paul's going to give us an update in just a few minutes on that. What I did want to say in advance is we've had over 450 people participate in some manner, even the base package or some of the higher end packages. And on behalf of Energy Arts and Bruce, I just want to say thank you for that, because we really actually do need that to help the build out of that center. Ryan, if you could drop the link in, if you haven't seen that offer and you want to see what's available, we'll drop a link into the chat box at various times here. You can go over there and participate. Mostly we aren't going to be talking about that offer during this call. We'll mention it a few times and at the end, but mostly this call is just a Q&A with Bruce to talk about Taoism in the West. So yeah, Ryan's just dropped that in there, so you can go there and check out all the different offers. I did want to mention we are going to be closing that offer on Thursday. I'll wait for Paul to tell you more about the building. So basically, click that link. You can find out about the offers. We're going to be going over the fire and water traditions of Taoism and a focus on the future of Taoism in the West. Bruce is going to share some of his background, how we got to where we've got within Energy Arts. That's where your questions are welcome. And then at the end, we'll give a quick summary of the different offer packages. I got Q&A there twice, so if there's a few more questions at the very end, we will. We're going to try to keep this just about an hour, maybe a little bit more, an hour and a half max. We know it's getting late for people in the West. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to give us an update on the new training center that we've been working on.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited that it is actually a reality now. All signs pointed to go, but until the fat lady sings and the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, you never know what's going to happen. So those T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and we have closed on the building itself, which is incredibly cool and something that we've been working towards for a really long time. So the ink is on the dotted line, and we now own a building just outside the Boulder area, Boulder-Denver area. It's an amazing spot in the U.S. If you Europeans are tuning in, the Rocky Mountains are right there, some 14,000-foot mountains. Denver's known as a mile-high city, so a lot of incredibly powerful nature and things to do, very vibrant city on both sides, Boulder and Denver. And the building itself is an 8,000 square foot facility that we're going to have a very large training hall in. Currently, it's kind of more in an office kind of configuration. And so one of the first orders of business is going to be to do a lot of demolition work so that we can kind of expose a big training area. And it's a concrete floor right now, so we're going to have to get something that has a little bit more give to it. It's a little more forgiving for practice and that kind of thing. So after the demo, we'll start carving out the training space, updating some of the restrooms, and creating some better filming area, that kind of thing, for everybody. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing to actually see it coming together. We, of course, are really open to any help that anybody can offer us. So specifically right now, we're going through the architectural drawings. So if we have any really capable architects out there who may want to lend a hand, we may even need some boots on the ground to be able to do the build out and the demolition. We want to tie in with you guys however we can. The Energy Arts family is widespread and highly populated. So it's always great to tie in with you guys however we can. And we'd love to hear your ideas about where you want this to go as we kind of get things rolling. And it's just a really exciting time to be an Energy Arts student. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. Oh, I can't hear you right now, Rich. Are you on mute?
Yeah, I was on mute there. I was on the mute thing. Let's dive right into our topic. And I thought maybe as an overview, we could start by talking about the difference between the Taoist and water tradition, just so people know that the difference for maybe some people who are newer to the system, because there are definitely two different approaches in Taoism, and maybe talk a little bit about what Energy Arts' approach is and how it's different from others, Bruce.
Well, I think most people, if they know anything about Taoism, they probably know the name of two books. One is the Tao Te Ching, which was written by Lao Tzu 2,500 years ago, and they may have used the I Ching for fortune telling. But the Taoist tradition is, if you just want to take it from the time of Lao Tzu and forget about that it existed before Lao Tzu came in, then it's about 2,500 years old. And the tradition that Lao Tzu put in, which emphasizes softness and naturalness and all those things you may have heard of being like a baby and basically going with the flow, if you want to, that's the simple term. That was the primary basis of all the Taoism for about 1,500 years. Then somewhere around the year 1000, other influences came into Taoism, so that a lot, if not most, of what was in the original Taoism was preserved, but it went a different way. Where Lao Tzu's tradition is about actually feeling the body, feeling the vibrations within the body, feeling the universal vibrations, and from the inside of your body producing light. Then you had what was called the Neo-Taoist tradition that within Taoism is called the fire tradition. And it had influences from two main areas. One was Tibet, with all their visualizations and whatnot. And the fire traditions generally do a lot of visualizations. And that went on for the next 1,000 years, and the internal alchemy that came out of the Mideast. The names are the same, they're not necessarily doing the same things. Internal alchemy means something very, very different in the original tradition, which is that after a person becomes, I guess, what in the West we would call personally enlightened, that's when alchemy begins. Whereas in the fire traditions, internal alchemy is what they call the process for them to become personally enlightened. And then there's stuff that comes after that, which is similar. So I was a priest first. I went to underwent a 7-year training in Chinese, no English anywhere. And I did that for 7 years in Taiwan and Hong Kong. And then after that, and that was the fire tradition. And then from that, I became a priest. I graduated. And then in Beijing, I got to meet what in Taoism is called an immortal or a complete Buddha, who then taught me the original water tradition that he had passed on to him in the mountains of Sichuan after being there for 10 years and after he was formally declared enlightened in Buddhism. So there's a lot of deep background here, and I'm not going to try and explain what it is because we'd be here for months on end. So that's the difference between the two practices. And the biggest thing, I guess, that most people would have to relate to is that with the visualization methods, there is a great tendency not to be able to fully embody all the energy in Taoism because They supplant it by visualizing it. And visualizing something is not the same as having it happen inside of you in real time. For example, you can use an example from Tibetan Buddhism, which influenced the fire tradition. The beginning practices, the preparatory practices in their method is done through visualization. But the completion, or when you actually get the deed done, is done by actually doing the Tibetan form of qigong, of shengon, which is then you feel it in your body. It's actually a living experience inside your body, as opposed to an intellectual idea about what the living experience should be. So that sums up the big stuff inside of Taoism. Now, inside the water tradition, it's a big thing. I can't say I do everything in it. My focus on it was what are called personal practices, the practices that will eventually take a person to use the term enlightenment. I didn't do the feng shui. I didn't do all the mathematical things, which are intellectual things. I could have, but I stayed with the practice. So you have body practices, you have psychic practices, you have practices to get you to become aware of what's inside your body, not just flesh, but what's happening inside your cells. And all of this is to raise a person's awareness, to take them on the road to enlightenment. So when you talk about the thing that the West knows, for example, Hatha Yoga does not go as far as body practice do in Taoism. It has a specific way, which is the Indian tradition. Taoism is the Chinese tradition. But Taoism actually is a much bigger thing about body practice. In the earlier phase of Taoism, they work with energy and to heal people. I mean, literally, you got a disease? Okay, what you got? Can we do something about it? And qigong tuina is a branch of that. And then they have, well, how about when people age? Do you have specific things to enhance their longevity? Not necessarily how long they will live, as that's always a debatable subject. A car could hit you, as the phrase goes. But how to actually make it so that as you age, you don't go dottery. You actually stay strong and clear. So those are some things. Then there's the whole martial art tradition that was within Taoism that, was there also to protect their priests when they would wander all over the place, both from bandits and from large animals. And that also then starts off at, that's regular martial arts. But then it goes into spiritual martial arts, where martial arts are actually used. There's a method that they can take you to enlightenment. So there are a lot of these things. There are all the qigong practices. There are all what they call the spiritual qigong practices. And in this center, I've always had to stop at a certain point, because to teach the higher level work, you have to have a space that is shielded from negative forces. Because when anything that is trying to do something positive in this world gets going, the invisible world has all sorts of entities that want to mess it up. And for example, the same thing about sealing buildings was done in almost every spiritual tradition on the earth that had a serious, shall we say, way to take people into spirituality. That's what was done in Tibetan temples. That was what was classically done. That's the reason why the temples have such thick walls and this and that. It was a matter of making sure that when people came inside those places, the energy within the building enabled them to learn as fast as possible, but also to prevent things which could mess them up from entering the building. So I would say over the past 30 years I've been back in China, I've taught about 25% of what I learned there. The other 75% I have not taught because I've never had a shielded building. Well, this building, well, now that we have a building, we have the possibility of sealing it so we can do the rest of it. That's about what it boils down to. Now, I don't expect most Americans to necessarily get what a thing is about a lineage. America doesn't have lineages. We're 200 years old, 250 years old. But many of the large spiritual traditions on the earth go back thousands of years. And if something has a general lineage, it means that it is connected with all the high-powered stuff within the lineage without it having been lost, damaged, destroyed, or forgotten about. So what I learned from Leo in Beijing is I actually learned what's inside Taoism. And that's what I want to put out. So all those things could be summed up as lineage. Now, I realize you may not get what a lineage is. That's fine. Just know that all the knowledge that is within Taoism is within their lineages. just as all the knowledge that is in Tibetan Buddhism is within their lineages. And that's why it's kind of a big deal. In other words, I spent 11 years studying Taoism and another couple of years in Japan and India just getting background information. And this is the real deal. This is the real stuff. And I hope it can pass to the West. I'm willing to do it, but you need a space to do it. And we have a space. Now we just need to have the money to, because we've exhausted our resources, that we have the money to be able to fix it up so it can serve the people who are going to come there the best. And my interest is in teaching and benefiting as many people as I personally can do, as well as hopefully some people will stay the course of 10 or 15 years so they can get the whole lineage and pass it on for another generation.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. And being involved in the center and making it happen, it's always been, it's always been kind of elusive finding that spot where this would work and creating that space for people to study. Because of the origins of Taoism kind of coming from this more, like you had mentioned, the mountains in Sichuan. I mean, that's kind of a far cry from today's world where everything is kind of pressure. I mean, I know even just from going through the real estate deal we've been going, I ended up looking at a bunch of computer screens and I just get kind of constantly sucked out of myself. What's the main difference between students who are learning then and now, and how Taoism has stayed relevant to the human condition regardless?
Well, I would say a few things. That the most central point of Taoism is not that it can make your body better. That is just part of their preparatory practices, because they say that without a body and the energy within the body operating well, then the mind is not capable of going where it can go, because it's like the earth, the soil that a flower grows out of. If the soil is poisoned, then you're not going to get a flower growing out of it. So what I would say is that the word meditation now it's a crazy word. You see, if you go back about 50 years ago, there was some idea that meditation related to spirituality. That's not true now. I don't even know what the word meditation, is. It means almost anything. People, it's a buzzword. People like the word. Let's throw the word out. Okay, that's fine. But when you're talking about meditation, it basically breaks down into two categories. The first stage of meditation, you could call stress management, or you could call getting your basic psychology together. Crazy people don't actually ever get anywhere in meditation. People whose minds are weak and feeble and whose body energy is feeble don't get anywhere in meditation. So the first thing you got to do is make their mind and body strong and make their minds fairly well balanced. Now, in today's world, that usually comes into the category of stress management. But there's a difference. The overwhelming majority of stress management that's out there goes into the category of what I call get them to sit on their ass and think about something differently, to just change their thoughts about it. But meditation is not about thinking. As a matter of fact, it's about going beyond thinking, which is something that most people can't easily relate to, because all they have ever known their whole life is thinking. But there is something that is beyond thinking. And when you really start talking about spiritual awakening, you have to go beyond thinking, and that's it. And this is true, at least in every tradition in Asia. I never really deeply studied the Western systems, but I know it's true of every major system in Asia. As I said, I spent years in India, Japan, China, so been in there, done that, as it were. So you have to go beyond your mind. If you're going to get true peace in life, thinking that you should change what's inside of you won't get you there. What will get you there is doing something that can take you deep enough into your mind that you can clear out what's there, so you can find not only the peace inside you, but all the other things the mind is really capable of. And that is where it is. I mean, for another good example, the word meditation, Taoism, just means to sit and go still. In Tibetan Buddhism, it means mind training. That's what you're doing. You're training your mind so you can come into higher spiritual states. You won't get that by thinking about it. If all it was is a matter of thinking about it, give somebody a book, read it. I'm sorry, and nobody in any spiritual tradition has ever said you can wake up by reading a book. It's not possible. You have to It's a nice thing to do in the beginning. It's helpful as background. It's helpful as motivation. It's helpful for giving you at least a big overview. But then when you get to meditation, you have to literally transcend an immense number of limitations that human beings have.
Could you give a quick overview of the Taoists? The Taoists have the inner and outer dissolving paths of the meditation, because I think for some of the newer people on here, they may not know what that is, and that will be one of the focal points of the teaching in the new center, is teaching a lot of this inner and outer dissolving.
Well, dissolving. Okay, what does dissolving mean? You have energy inside you. So now we have a question: does it flow freely or not? Is it flowing so it can do what it can do? If you have a house hooked up to electricity and you blow a fuse, you now have a blockage in your electrical system. The lights go out, the fridge goes out, everything goes out. So that's the blockage. Well, in meditation, you learn various ways, both of putting energy into a blockage, putting your mind into a blockage. You learn how to put your mind to release the energetic blockages inside you, so that all the dammed up energy you can't use starts circulating to your benefit. Now, the difference between inner and outer dissolving is this. Most people, many people when they start, who can say how much, they don't necessarily much care about what's going on very deeply inside them. What they do care about is that my body hurts. I would like my body to be strong. I want to play better on a sports field. I want to be able to have a mind that can read and study without it, turning into mush. So these are actually body problems. All of this is deriving from the fact that your body cannot either put into your brain, or your brain cannot put into your body what it needs. So then you have the next technique that's called outer dissolving, which is for that reason. No, it's not about the traumas you had in childhood. It's not about why you don't feel good about yourself. It's not about why your head is messed up. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. It is not about finding some super joy, happiness, spiritual awakening. No, it's not. It's about the fact that you have a body, it's giving you problems, so you want to fix them. Even if the problem is just that your concentration is really, really terrible, okay? So then what happens is there's a way that you can put your mind inside your body, find the blockage, find out what's blocked, because what's blocked is like that fuse that blew, or a wire that got cut or something like that. And you recognize it, and then you actually start dissolving the energy in that blockage so it goes outside your body. And outside your body, you have something that's called the etheric boundary. You have chi, you have energy between yourself and some boundary out here. And what's inside your body has to actually be able to clear this space before it can come back into you as clean energy, like taking dirty water and making it clean water before you can drink it. So that this is outer dissolving, but the emphasis on the outside. There's another stage, outer dissolving, but I don't think I want to go into that, because that you have to go pretty far in inner dissolving before you can even try and do it. Now, what is inner dissolving? Well, you have emotions. You can make your body stronger. You may be able to take some of the buzz out of your emotions, but you cannot resolve emotional issues strictly through the body. You can't. You have to go where deep inside your body, deep inside your mind, is the source of your blown fuses inside of you. So, for example, people have had problem with their parents. They've hated people their whole life. Well, wouldn't you like to get rid of that? Well, to do that, you have to go through inner dissolving. Someone has all kinds of terrible post-traumatic this and that from having been in wars. Wouldn't you like to get rid of that stuff that's a burden? Well, that happens from inner dissolving. Inner dissolving is also needed, in the way it's done in Taoism, to resolve your karma. And karma can be resolved. So the fact of the matter is that that's inner dissolving, but that doesn't go out. That's where, when you focus on something that's blocked, you start going into it. And there is essentially, the way the Taoists put it, there is as much space inside any blockage as there is in the known universe. It's filled with infinite space and infinite ways it can get blocked. And so then there is a method through which you can release that. And at the end of that, you arrive at what in Buddhism and Taoism is called emptiness. And then you're free of it. It's gone, no more. You know, one of the examples I like to use that's in America. An old couple in New York, right? As a favor to somebody, these two had been through Auschwitz, and they had been through it, and they had a lot of money. They came up with a lot of money, and they were able to get a giant penthouse apartment that had an incredible distance between one end and the other. And the reason why is this couple could not sleep together without each of them waking the other one up with at least 5-6 times a night with nightmares. Auschwitz was a nasty place to be in. Going through Auschwitz is probably, you could say it's probably worse than most problems people have with their families, even if they were beaten morning, noon, and night, because you were beaten morning, noon, and night in Auschwitz also. Anyway, 2 years later, gone. They could sleep together in the same room. Now, they had been to every shrink. They had done everything they could. But anyway, it worked for them. Inner dissolving was used to get rid of a lot of the problems in China's Cultural Revolution, which was a worse horror show than Hitler's Germany. Okay, in my opinion. So that's inner dissolving. That's how you get rid of deep things inside you. But, you know, we also have this problem with the word meditation. One of the most famous books about meditation is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, who was like the last together Roman emperor. Well, it's not. It was Stoic philosophy. It was thinking about philosophy and how you should live a life. But if you have something that's really buried deep inside you, you can think about it all you want. It won't come out. Taoism, the inner dissolving process, is a way of resolving that for you. Where is it very important? For some people on a practical level, first of all, it's a direct way of getting rid of traumas. And I haven't seen that happen in very many meditation systems. Second of all, it's a direct way of getting rid of a lot of the obstacles that prevent you from being able to do what you want in life. You can't have decent relationships. You can't make money. You can't, you know, you have a goal. You come almost to the end of the goal and then you blow it off and go somewhere else to be able to follow through. So anyway, that's inner dissolving. It is the trademark, the signature method of Taoist meditation, which is the one thing I think that makes it a bit different than any other meditation method I've ever seen in the world.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. So just for people who have joined us, we have almost 300 people on the webinar. Please, if you're just jumping on, tell us where you're dialing in from. There's a chat box there, and we're going to just kind of move into some Q&A and answer a lot of Q&A. And the purpose of this is just to ask questions about the water tradition, about the center that's emerging. And Bruce is here to basically answer questions. There's a question here, do you have to learn outer dissolving before inner dissolving? And we've got a few other questions, so we'll just kind of queue these questions up, as many as we can. I will mention, you know, I want to thank the 450 plus people that have already donated or contributed to buying one of the packages. We're going to drop the link in here as well. If you haven't seen that offer, it would help us. And we're raising money for the construction phase because we've got the building and we're going for the construction phase.
And we're still quite short for what we need to do that.
Yeah. So we'll just keep dropping the link in here, and then we're going to close down that first round on Thursday. So if you can get in, that would be greatly appreciated. So that question, Bruce, again was, can you do outer, is there like a sequence of outer dissolving before inner dissolving?
Outer dissolving is easier to do than inner dissolving. And the general position in Taoism is do what's easy first and what's hard later, after you have some background. Do you have to? No. Is it better to? Yes. Okay, great.
And another question here, and this is part of one of the reasons we wanted to do this webinar, was just in the world right now, there's a lot of fire energy, and how can the water tradition of Taoism help bring us back into balance? And how can we be part of that with our own practices? There's like kind of an add-on question is, what's the difference between an upward and downward flow of energy in water and fire traditions?
I'm not going to answer the question of what's doing an upward and a downward flow of energy, because frankly speaking, from my point of view, and forgive me, that's intellectual masturbation. that is something you have to learn how to do, learn what experience. What does up mean? It means from your feet to your head. What does down mean? It means from your head down to your feet.
Okay.
But there's a lot more. But there is today, if we talk about the other part. All right. Generally speaking, the world is too much fire in the way it goes about things. You want to look at someone who could totally operates from a fire approach. Take Donald Trump. He screams, he yells, he rants, he raves. And there are people who do it quietly. You don't have to do it as bombastically as he does. But everything today is push, push, push. And one of the hallmarks of Laozi's tradition is that it's how to apply full effort without straining yourself. And today people snap because they push themselves to the limit until something snaps inside them. And this is why people need stress management, because they're snapping inside and they're being under tremendous pressure. So when I came back after being a Taoist priest in the 1970s, I taught fire methods. And many people benefited from it. And at a certain degree, you could even say it becomes addictive. I mean, if you want to see someone who has a fire lifestyle, run into a person who takes cocaine every day, because that's what it's producing, is fire inside them. And in Denver, I saw that, although, I taught the stuff such as I was taught, but I also watched that it was very, very difficult for people. And as I was seeing everything in the West when I came back, and I saw how everything was run by fire, it was run by extremism, it was run by anxiety, it was run by nervousness, then I made the decision I was not going to teach the fire praxis, although, I'm quite sure I'd have many more people following what I'm doing if I did. Because if there's anything that can be said, is that addicts will always go toward whatever they're addicted to. And the counter to that, what the water thing does, is it cools people down. And it is not less effective, whatever it is you want to do. It actually can be more effective, but I think it's cooling down the excessive fire that runs throughout the whole of Western society is, I think, a tremendous gift Laozi's tradition of meditation and qigong and martial arts can do. Yes, Rich?
Yeah. Actually, Rich, if you don't mind me popping in real quick, I saw something pop through the comments there that I think is really relevant, is that somebody was saying, it's not necessarily good to have an overabundant amount of ambition, but we still need to get things done. And I think a lot of times people associate fire with, well, I've got to push to get something done. How does the water tradition handle getting a maximum amount of effectiveness, but without necessarily the fire approach?
Its method of enabling a person to get things done is simply to really have them get the idea of non-stopping continuity. You don't have to get fired up and go crazy to walk a mile. You know what you need to do? Have something that will enable you to put one foot in front of the other until you walk the mile. And the water method in all of Chinese history has proven to be as effective. I mean, I've worked with corporate people, big ones, and I can tell you that the feedback I ever got back when I got it back from them was that what I showed them enabled them to get more done, but without tearing their inside apart as much. So this having a sense of internal ease while you are outputting as much as you can is quite different than having a sense of internal tension while you are outputting as much as you can. Fire goes for the tension, water goes for the ease. It's that simple. Its principles, its principles are different. To just intellectually describe, I can tell you what the result is. To describe how it's done, I mean, that's a long story. Anything else?
Yeah, one question is, will there be opportunities in the new center for ongoing instructor certifications? If Paul, you want to take that, or Bruce, you want to take that?
The purpose of the center is a couple of fold. I have been teaching ongoing instructor certifications for 30 years. They will continue in the new school. The thing that can really be a difference is that because we're not always having to run around finding a place we can rent, and very often you only can rent them for certain amounts of time, or there's competition for those spaces, that we probably will have longer instructor trainings as well as shorter ones, as well as the big thing I'm hoping for is, try and understand this. The training I went through, 11 years in China, nonstop, that's 365 days a year. You can't replicate that in workshops or seminars. Just go the hours, just see how many hours that is, and you don't have that much time in a year. What I'm hoping for is that people from my students who actually want to make a commitment to really learning, and the new people who will show up, that now there's a place to where you can train them on a regular basis so that the long-term consistent training, which is what creates all masters. Masters do not get created from workshops, okay? They may get a great PR package, but it does not create a master. A master requires consistent work. You start reading the stories, if you want, of any of the great masters, and then you see how much time they put into becoming one. So you have to have a place to do it, and we will do that. So there will still be instructor trainings. I will still continue most of what I have, but there also will be much higher level instructor trainings, because if they need to last for 3 months, I can do it. If they need to last for a month, I can do it. Where I have not been able to do that, renting spaces. I couldn't even rent the spaces where you could get them that long. And it's getting worse now. Real estate is getting more expensive. It is not getting less expensive. And, you know, the places that when population was low were set up so they could rent out to people, they're all taken up. I mean, quite seriously, they're all taken up. The world's population is growing. There's twice as many people who want them, and there's not particularly any more of them being made. So, yeah. Okay. So the simple answer is yes. It wasn't a simple question.
No, I get it. Can you talk a little bit about, you've been working on a project, a really short-term project. You've been working on this for, I think, the last 7 or 8 years. You've been working on a translation of the Tao Te Ching. Can you share a little bit about that project and what will make that book different about the other translations out there?
Well, first of all, I'm not translating the Tao Te Ching. Due to, I'm working in concert with one of my students who's an archaeological professor, and the way the modern world is that, you know, there's this thing called copyright. So the fact of the matter is that everybody has been, you know, they try and do something, and to translate the Tao Te Ching is useless. Because the overwhelming majority of what is in the Tao Te Ching is coded language. It's like if you would take normal English and then you would read a scientific book, all the same terms have actually radically different meanings because they're specific to what it is. Well, what happened is that Alan found something that was like way out of print, and he's having fun doing it because he wants to make it so it's acceptable to academia, which I could care less about, to tell you the truth. What I've done is that I was a Taoist priest. I trained with an immortal. I had 11 years where I was consistently taught the Tao Te Ching. So what I'm doing is that each line of the Tao Te Ching, Alan's asking me questions, some of which are useful, some of which, you know, I never would have done it by myself, but they seem to be what ordinary people are looking for. And then I actually explain what these lines in the Tao Te Ching mean. Now, that is not something anybody has even attempted. The Chinese, who are not active practicing Taoists, would not attempt it. Almost all the translations of the Tao Te Ching are done by Confucians, or they're done by scholars who have no idea what the lines mean. Zero. But even the poor translations, the Tao Te Ching has such a power. What I'm doing is actually explaining what those lines are aiming toward, what it's about, what is behind them. That has never been done in English, and this is a first, and I've been going at it for years, and it's a very long and difficult project.
Okay, great.
It's like the Bible.
Paul, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I guess we've talked before a little bit about
one more thing to that, Paul. Just 1 second. The Tao Te Ching, at least as of about 10 years ago, is the second most translated book in the world in English. It has a power, and I thought it was a good thing to help pass it on to the West, some of what's behind it. So that's why I'm doing it. And that's why I've been spending, in the past couple of weeks, I've been spending close to 8 to 10 hours a day on it. And I've been doing it, traveling. It's a difficult thing anyway. And I hope that when the center gets created, that if there's the interest, then I can start really doing the oral teachings about what the Tao Te Ching is about.
And again, just quickly, if you have questions, we're kind of in the Q&A section right here. We're answering it about Taoism, about the water and fire traditions, any questions about the upcoming center. And we're just doing a free Q&A for probably the next 20 or so minutes. So please ask your questions here. We'll try to field as many of the questions that are relevant to the topic. Some of the questions that are coming in are quite advanced. So we aren't going to be able to talk about the 6 palm change of Bagua and some of these more advanced things. But if they're relevant to what we're talking about here, please put them in there and we'll get to them. So thank you for everybody for participating. The more questions, the better, really.
Yeah. Well, we're getting ready to have a big boost to the community, Bruce. And one of the big things that I've always enjoyed about going to the events is connecting with people who are working with something very real. Like, it seems like I've made some of the best friends of my life when we're at the events, because we're working with something that's not just a bunch of thoughts, not just a bunch of intellectualism, but something that's very personal and real. So one of the things that comes up with a lot of meditators is they say, well, if you just kind of dissolve all these blockages and dissolve a lot about your personality and ego and all that kind of thing, you just turn into this kind of cold person. And I know you've talked about how that's not the case because of, for many different reasons. But if you just talk about a little bit more about how the balance is there between emptiness and the heart opening in the practices themselves.
Well, first of all, both Buddhism and Taoism, which you've described as something there's nothing here, is called nihilism. No, nothing's there, which is considered to be one of the really major mistakes in meditation. Here, this is, I'll give you kind of the way the Chinese always put it. The Chinese term is 什么都有, 是什么都没有, 什么都没有, 是什么都有. And it means that when you go to emptiness, something being empty means there's nothing there, but something being empty means it has the potential for everything that exists to be there. Because ultimately, both Buddhism and Taoism has the opinion that out of emptiness, that is how all manifestation occurs. So there's no question of, you get dull and you get sleepy and you don't do anything. As a matter of fact, that's the opposite. If anything, you should get sharper and clearer. And even if you want to take it, faster and just, able to take on more. So that's the nature of real meditation. But if all you're trying to do is just calm your mind down, then you can end up in that state that you just talked about, where you lose all interest in doing anything and you're just kind of like a big lump of something.
Gotcha.
Here's a question. What does looking at a computer all day do to one's person's chi or energy?
How polite do you want me to be?
How polite is the computer? It always feels pretty aggressive to me.
I'll give you my personal opinion. And keep in mind that I have written all my own books. I have published 14 and I have 2 more in the works. What do computers basically do to people? They fuck them up. I'm just saying, how polite do I have to be? There is no, well, they cause your brain to become disorganized. No, they screw with you. There's no 2 ways about it. And part of it is that I find that Taoist practices enable you to kind of get rid of what the problems that computers do. They mess with your brain waves, they mess with the electrical signals inside your brain. But they do more than that. If you are not able to be aware of what's inside you, you do not even realize how you're being sucked into a computer and how those things can very easily hypnotize you. And one of the things about Taoism is that as you get further in meditation, you're actually able to be conscious of your unconscious mind. So that when you see something is happening to your unconscious mind, you go, no, 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 we got to do something about this. And they have things that you can do, you know, even if it means walking away from the computer for 10 minutes, but there's usually things you can do while you're working at it. You see, one of the big problems with computers is that they mess with the continuity of the mind. The mind does have a thing where it just kind of continues, but intermittent faults, computers create all sorts of intermittent disruptions inside people's energy fields. And so a lot of especially the qigong practices are very good for lessening this, or for all practical purposes, getting rid of most of it. So as I said, what I'm saying, I am not, I don't write code, but I have spent in the past 20, 25 years, I have spent more 8 to 10 hour days on a computer nonstop without a break than I can count. And that's how my writing gets done.
Great. Here's another question about how long does it take to become an energy arts instructor? Like how many preliminary years of practice? I think that's a question you probably get a lot, Bruce. You want to answer that one?
It's a question I actually don't want to answer, because that kind of depends upon you. I mean, look, you have people who take courses, but then they don't practice it all that much afterwards. You take people who take courses and they have seriously minimal talent. You have people who take courses that their bodies were so wrecked, it takes them 3 times as long to get their bodies in enough shape to where they can actually understand what's going on. But as a general rule, I mean, I've always held that a person probably should be engaging with the practice they want to be certified in. You're not certified in everything. You're certified course by course, like in a university. You take, you know, English 101. You don't get a graduation degree, but you passed English 101. Usually my recommendation, about 3 years. You know, I mean, if a person, and of course, does that get less for people who have extreme talent? Yeah. Does it take longer for people who are the least talented in the group? But I think that, you know, a person should have a solid foundation, understand what they're doing, if they're going to go out and teach it. Otherwise, what you end up with is the blind leading the blind. And I don't think it ends up that well.
So we're heading through the holidays and we're coming up on solstice. And I saw someone asking the question, is there any particular way to practice with the solstice? But beyond that, practicing with the seasons, you know, as we're going through winter now, you know, what are some practical tips that we can use to bring the seasonal practice into our personal practice?
What I did when I was in Denver in the 1980s is that at the change of the seasons, at the energetic change of the seasons, which there is no almanac that can tell you when those days are, I could see it coming in about 2 weeks, and I would do these things we called intensives, you know, for a couple of days, you know, going from 10 o'clock to midnight, and then from like 4 in the morning to 7 in the morning. And I would teach people how to do things with the 5 elements so they could maximize what was happening from the change of the seasons. And I don't think there's much of a point in giving glib little sound bites about what you could do, because I don't see them paying dividends for the person who's getting them. So yes, we are coming into it. And one of the things I'm hoping will happen in this school in Boulder is that I'll start teaching that stuff again, because it is a basic part of Taoism about how you can eventually understand the 5 elements by doing these practices at the change of the seasons, at the change of the time when one element on the earth goes from being predominant to less and another element is rising to take its place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I just want to mention we're about 50 minutes in. We're going to take as many more questions as we can. Please post them into here. Please keep your comments focused to something about Taoism, water and fire traditions, or the center. There is a link in here. We're kind of on our last phases of fundraising. Just for those who've joined late, we've got a building in the Boulder, Denver area, and we're just kind of doing a couple days of fundraising we've got some supporter packages, and we've dropped a link in there. You can see those 5 packages, and those are going to be used to do things like a roof, a sound studio, A floor, like the practice floor, is really important. You want one with not too much spring, but not like a gymnastics floor, but you don't want it to be too hard, like on pounding and things like that. So there's specialized floors. This is kind of what this last campaign is for. We appreciate, we've had over 450 people already give something from a supporter package all the way to one of our larger packages. So I want to thank everybody who has already participated. It means a lot to us.
And many of the people who are listening could very easily end up coming to the school. So these things that we're going to put in are going to be for your benefit. You know, they're not for mine, that's for sure, but they are for yours. They are to enable you to learn better and to have a better experience when you're there.
Yeah, that's well put, Bruce. So I'm going to move on to another question here. I think this is an interesting one. Are there any Taoist equivalents to love and kindness meditation in Buddhism?
Yeah, but they're not exactly done the way they are in Buddhism. That's the best I can say. I mean, the biggest one in Buddhism is giving and receiving. It's called Tongling. Taoism doesn't do that specific one, but it does. Look, there are right now, since we're talking about the Tao Te Ching or the I Ching, there's a lot of translations. And when I learned, the English book I was using was the Wilhelm version, and it has in it, and it says, there is nothing that does not further, or everything furthers. Well, there's now people coming up with all sorts of other translations, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say about them because I don't think they're accurate. Because when I learned, I asked, really, the people who I thought were the real I Ching experts, including my teacher, Leo Hongjie. And they were explaining that the phrase, there is nothing that is not further, means a lot of things. One of the things it means is compassion. One of the underlying qualities of compassion is love. One of the underlying qualities of love is kindness. And so everything furthers always includes those three aspects. And there are a lot of specific practices for that. What I'm trying to do now is not just give an intellectual curiosity for a Buddhist. Well, how are they different? I'm just telling you they're there. And they are something that when there is a building, they're part of Taoist meditation. They're very much a part of when you do full moon meditations and whatnot, and new moon meditations. They're very much a part of that, but they're something that needs to be, something that is developed slowly over time. Some people have a natural tendency toward love and compassion and kindness and generosity. But in today's world, I think it's becoming very obvious that those qualities are diminishing. We're in a world right now, because of its hyper emphasis on money and marketing, and especially because it's a very small crowd that basically gets all the money and everybody else gets the crumbs, that people, they get embittered and they have a hard time with love and kindness and generosity. The wealthiest people are very often the least generous on the planet. And when you actually get how they treat people and what they think about them, they're not all that kind. All they care is about whatever agenda they have, getting it fulfilled. So this is a tendency that's happening throughout the whole planet. And so all I can say is that in the center, those are things which will have their place and will get emphasized. But it's a difficult thing in this time, because you're like the Dutch boy who's got his finger in the dike. I mean, the forces that are against love and kindness and compassion are growing. I hope this center can do something that can help, shall we say, shift the balance to whatever degree is humanly possible.
I saw one of the questions in the comments mention how the water method practices might be used to treat addiction. I mean, right now on a massive level, we've got, opioid addiction, but on a smaller level, I know that people just get addicted to their thoughts. They get addicted to, their lifestyles in certain ways. So what's a little bit of an insight to what's behind addiction and how the practice?
No, I'm sorry. That's just an intellectual masturbation question. If this were a thing about addictions, I could do that, but we don't have the time. What I just will say is this. What is an ego from a Taoist point of view? An ego is simply all the tiny sub-identities you have all together. And that somehow you call an ego, you call it me. They don't really exist. It's just kind of an aggregate. Well, a lot of folks, if you're an addict of anything, the fact of the matter is that you have all kinds of sub-identities that are telling you to be an addict. You know, you can take any junkie, you can take any person, and there are ways within, you know, several weeks or maybe a month or two that you can clean them out of everything they have inside them. That can be done. What is hard to clean out is the way that they have sub-identities or places in their mind that will drag them back to picking up the addiction again and again and again. And that subject is dealt with in dissolving in meditation. That's dealt with what in meditation is called agendas, which means you have something you really want to do. So instead of just generally dissolving everything, your mind actually goes right to the place that you're trying to deal with. That's something that's also fairly unique in Taoism. And then you dissolve that. But that's how addictions are dealt with. Anyway, whenever I get asked questions, I've had lots of people and they ask me questions in the middle of seminars or something. Well, only a few have the guts to say, okay, I'm a junkie. Okay. I've had people who've said, I was a professional assassin for 15 years. And I just want to get rid of this thing in me that wants to kill. And I showed them how to do it. I showed them how to make agendas. I actually even had one person who was a serious professional. I met him 5 years later and he said, I practiced that and it's gone. I'm no longer working in the profession. But his not working in the profession required that whatever it was inside of him that really wanted to do that, that had to go. And that's what dissolving does. It is something that enables someone to let go of many things they can't, which is not to say it'll work for every addiction, which is not to say anything will do everything. I think that's a bit of a greed to be hoping for that in this world. But you can. And all addictions are blockages inside of a person's primary wiring. That's all they are. And the dissolving process is about removing those glitches in the primary wiring.
Thanks, Bruce. We know we've been talking a lot about meditation here. There's just a question, is this just going to be a meditation center or are you going to be teaching other practices? I thought we should address that one.
Okay, pure and simple. I spent the first 20 years, 25 years of my teaching career. I mean, I had a karate school with 400 people with some partners in 1964, I think it was, okay? And I spent my earlier years primarily teaching martial arts and qigong. When I came back from China, I still kept teaching martial arts because I felt I had a debt to the tradition. But as I'm getting older, I consider the school in Colorado not to be primarily a martial arts school. You know, I'm sure there's lots of MMA people, and I no longer have an interest in what you have to do when you teach martial arts, is you've got to terrorize the people, because that's how you get them strong enough to be able to deal with being someone else trying to terrorize them. There is no soft, gentle way to teach martial arts that work. Okay? You can make it soft or you can't make it soft. But when I was in Beijing, my teacher first helped me to remove the influence of my mother from me. And I'm not going to go into my personal history. I say it sometimes. Just to say that I was traumatized as a kid, about as rough as it gets. Okay? 9 months, it was gone. It never bothered me again. And then I started actually getting into what higher meditation states were. And I started realizing what the potential that was inherent inside martial arts was. And then Leo taught me spiritual martial arts. He told me how martial arts can be done in the service of enlightenment, for want of a cheap way of putting it. So what I would imagine that this center is going to be is that it will teach martial arts. Exactly where that will go will depend upon the people that show up. I actually don't find that most people beyond the age of 18 really want to learn martial arts. Okay, not to go into it to let's just say with the intensity that I did and that which people I know who I would call martial artists did. But everybody wants to be healthy. And so qigong is going to be a major focus of the school because people want to be healthy. People have diseases from the age of 60 to 110. Also, a big emphasis will be on passing the Taoist meditation tradition. But the healing, the qigong, the martial arts, those are all part of what you can call the preparatory phase of Taoism. Just like kindergarten through high school is the preparatory phase of education. Then you've got university and graduate school where you actually get educated seriously. Well, the meditation is more, that part is more where it can seriously go. But at every step of it, I will be teaching everything I'm teaching from the perspective of meditation because this is my simple way. I don't care what needs you have with your body or with your desires. Everybody needs to have a body that's healthy, so I'm going to do that. All the chi stuff, I'm going to do that. But then I also want to start introducing how you can have a mind and a spirit that you're happy to live with. And a lot of people nowadays are not that happy with what they have to live inside with. And then for those who seem to progress down the ladder, then the main reason, the big thing I want to do is teach them how to wake up, how to spiritually wake up. And my teacher in Beijing told me that I had arrived at that stage, and he said it was my greatest talent and that I should do it. And I didn't want to do it the first 20 years I was back in the West because the fire into this and to that, it was too much. I mean, putting it quite simply, I didn't want to deal with the crazy people you get when you open your doors for meditation. And I've seen various and sundry Western groups, and there's a lot of crazy people go into it. But I think I'm a little bit better in doing this now. And as my compassion grew, I realized that even the crazy people, they were essentially having a lot of pain and they were essentially imbalanced. And so my interest is making that situation better. All of this is part of the Taoist tradition. It actually doesn't make a bit of difference what I want to do or what I don't want to do. These are all aspects of the Taoist tradition. I'm only explaining to you, and that's how they kind of struck me. But what I will do is take what I learned in 16 years in Asia, going at a full bore, and I want to pass it on. So there are some people that can get it. Some people will become great healers. I have no doubt. I've done it with other people before. We'll have to see where the martial art thing goes. Okay. I'm not sure with all this MMA stuff. I'm not exactly sure how far I want to take it because I had a very active fighting career when I was younger. I no longer am willing to hurt people for martial arts. I'm just not. Okay, it doesn't do it for me. Okay, I may say I have a little bit more kindness and generosity inside of me. And I don't want to particularly hurt people, but I do want to take people whatever they can go through in terms of spiritually waking up. And we'll see how the martial art thing goes. I'll still be teaching it. How much, wherever. I mean, let's get real. Whenever you open up any school, you can have any grandiose ideas about what you're going to do. But what happens on the ground more or less tells you what you're going to do at this point in time. Or at least that's been my experience. And I've taught, I don't know, 25,000 students. So I got a fair idea where people are coming from.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, for students who have been around for a while, especially the live teachings, something that you've done frequently are the Taoist liturgies, where you use a lot of intonation and sound. And I feel this question a lot doing the event coordination, if you would ever be open to teaching that type of stuff. And I know that possibilities never existed at the types of events that we've run before. So with the using sound as a practice, is that something that the new center might open up and yeah, it's something you're open to teaching.
I'm open to teaching. I think I actually did that once in a course because I kept on being asked. I tried it. Here's the problem, okay? And first of all, these liturgies are producing very specific vibrations which are affecting the unseen world. Second of all, I learned how to do them in Chinese. Chinese is not English. And, you know, so, and I don't actually expect a massive number of Chinese people to show up, Chinese speaking people to show up at the school. I'm open to doing it. It's, when I did it once, it seemed to help people a lot. I tried just teaching the vibrations without the Chinese. It's not quite as good, but it all that seemed to be available. So I'm not against doing it, but I'm still not exactly sure how you could pragmatically pull it off. Because some of those sounds, especially when you start getting into the overtones and the, this is not stuff in English. These are not sounds people have ever heard. These are not sounds people have ever made. So you're left to having to kind of do it the way they did some similar things in India, where you're going to take ordinary sounds. But you see, the Chinese sounds are actually designed to actually be able to go through all the energy bodies of people very clearly, very succinctly, very directly, not vaguely, but spot on. I'm okay with doing it. I'm just, let's just say I don't have, because I've never known anyone who's ever done it before. And I don't exactly know how it would go. But if you're asking the first question, would I be open to doing it? Yeah, I'd be open to doing it. I just don't know what's going to happen from it.
Okay.
I've got kind of a joint question. One is, will you be having senior instructors and teachers at the school? And then the second related to that is how do you see the community evolving? What kind of community would you like to see evolve around the new center and how it emerges in America and beyond, into Europe and everything?
Well, first of all, the way the community is going to grow is going to be organic. But here would be some of my thoughts on the subject. There would be some percentage of people who would come from, you know, place I do seminars who've known me, and they would say, I'd really like to learn this stuff. And so let's get down. Well, that's going to mean that they're going to have to be there for years. And the one nice thing about Boulder, Denver is that there's a lot of employment around there. You know, unless you inherited a trust fund, people got to eat and they got to make money. And if anyone's looking for me to give them a place to eat and me to feed them, all I have to say is that if there is some billionaire out there who would like to donate the amount of money that we can pay for them being housed and being fed, I'll accept it and I will use it for that purpose. Okay? I don't. Anyway, that's all.
I'll help organize that. I'll help organize that billionaire if you guys need help.
Right. Otherwise, whoever comes, like to a sense like I had to do. The whole time I was in Asia learning, I never received support from anyone. I made money in the West teaching and other various and sundry things. I then took it and bought my time to study in Asia. And when I ran out of money, I came back to the West. So, but I don't have the ability. I'm not a billionaire or mega millionaire. So anyway, but there is plenty of housing in the Boulder, Denver area. Seems to be, there's a lot of work. Colorado's an okay place. I don't know, maybe you want to become a big pot salesman. I don't know. And it's legal in Colorado, becoming a booming industry. Or Google opened up 1,000 per person campus there. And, you know, I mean, there's work. That's all I can say. All right. So then what it would be nice is that if there were, over time, a group of, I don't know how many, a couple of hundred people, grew up around the school, became friends, practiced together, you know, what they call big brother and older brother and younger brother helping each other out, older sister and younger sister helping each other out. And then if you then talk about how it's going to go beyond Colorado, well, then we'll just have to see. My best guess is that some people would spend a certain number of years in the school to where they became good enough to run a school of their own. And then they would go off somewhere and start one. And then that process would keep on repeating. And who knows, maybe their students would go and start one. And that is organic growth. And that is pretty much the only idea I have on the subject.
Okay, great. Well, we're kind of starting to come to the
question of the senior instructors.
Yeah.
I hope a number of them are going to want to come and teach in the school. But I am not demanding that anybody come and teach in a school, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few showed up. You know, as a matter of, I've already had one or two said that they want to do it, then we just have to work out whatever all the details are. Because the ideal situation in the school is this. Somebody comes in, a beginner comes in, and, you know, 10 years ago, I had taught 20,000 students. Now it's probably 25. You have no idea. You know, people come in, they want to try it out. They're curious. They're going to a supermarket. I think I'll have a candy bar. Oh, wow, that broccoli looks nice. And they'll try it, but they won't necessarily stay there. Or if they do, they have to go through a period of time where it is better for my senior students to teach them than I teach them. Because my senior students are going to be closer to the level they are. Through teaching those people, they're going to learn how to teach better. And because I'll be coaching them on the side. And if they do that and a person comes in and they go through a period of time where now at least they're clear, this is what I want to do. They're not trying it out, but they're clear they want to do it. Then this place is big enough we can put a curtain between the rooms and they walk over to me and I teach them. Because I think at this stage in my life, I should really only be teaching people who really want to learn, not people who want to try something out. For that, I can recommend them to all the pot stores in Boulder. And it's legal, so it's a big industry there, so you can get all the pot you want. Any THC content you want, it is for sale. So, okay. But if we're talking about actually doing some sort of spiritual work, something that can really change you, well, the only people who are really going to be able to change big time from it are the people who are going to commit themselves to doing it. Because the practices are what are going to bring the genuine benefits to you, not just hearing about it. If we were just hearing about it, I would just do videos and say, oh, listen to the video. But because there's transmission involved, I would like now to start having the transmissions go to people who really want to learn it, rather than, as the phrase goes, pouring water on a stone. To answer your question, Richard?
Yeah, that's perfect. And for those joining us, we're probably going to start to wrap it up here. Last questions, get them in now. I'll answer a few more and then we'll get out of here. I know it's getting late on the East Coast. Thanks everybody for joining in. We've had over 450 people already buy one of the supporter packages. Ryan just dropped the link in there again. We're basically have got a building in Boulder and we're basically working on renovating it now so that it can open next year. Anything you can give from the smallest package to the largest package is greatly appreciated.
I would recommend for the people who can, especially get the larger packages, you'll probably get some good karma from it. So it'll help you in more ways than you might imagine.
Yeah, so you can click the link. We're going to be closing that down on Thursday. The community is super excited. I'll just say personally, I think my story of meeting you, Bruce, was I was in a coffee shop in Hong Kong. I was working there, and at the time I was a hedge fund manager, and I had how much do I want to share? Anyway, we met in a coffee shop there.
Popping up. That's
we met in a coffee shop there kind of randomly, and then I attended an event that summer. And it was 3 weeks of 3 weeks of Bagua that ended in a week of meditation. And if you can spend at least 2 or 3 weeks with Bruce working on yourself every day, it's just an extraordinary experience. And Bruce has been my teacher for many years after that. And every time I'm with him, I'm just grateful. And then I just say one thing about the senior students. It's the senior students aren't people who have studied with Bruce for 3 or 4 years. They're people, really advanced mentors that have their own schools, have their own masters in their right, and have worked, many of which have worked for Bruce for 30 plus years. And so getting a chance to study with them has been extremely valuable to me at the retreats as well. So I just wanted to mention that as those people come through, it's kind of like you're getting this great font of wisdom that can help you out with whatever level you're at. So I just wanted to mention that. Paul, did you have anything to say about that, or want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Because I'm the event coordinator for the retreats and events that we do all over the world, one of the things that I definitely have grown to appreciate is that when you're in that environment, you never know where the thing that's really going to just open something up for you is just going to pop out from someone. Bruce creates the space, but then there are so many capable people inside that space, whether it's a senior instructor or just teachers who have been at this for 10, 20, 30 years. And when you're learning something together, they can provide that spark of insight. And there's just so much opportunity to learn from each other in these spaces in live events. And I think with the school, that's just going to be magnified to such a huge degree. And I'm really excited to see exactly that organic growth that Bruce is talking about manifesting at the center. Because when people have a chance to go deep, I mean, about the longest we've ever been able to run trainings at a time is 4 or 5 weeks at a time. To be able to be in that space, in a dedicated space with a single-minded purpose, for 2-3 months at a time, years on end, what that can do for people and the doors that'll open up inside the community is just, it's really inspiring. And I'm just looking forward to it. So that's not exactly a question, but I guess it's a statement. It's something we're all really.
I'll mention this because it's probably not obvious to many, but a lot of Bruce's senior students, the source was actually Bruce's school in Denver, and he also had a school in New Mexico. The older ones, they came, and it was because they were able to study with Bruce over an extended period of time for years and have that ongoing, and that's how they made that first foundational leap. So Bruce's most senior students were birthed out of when you had a school, I don't know, in the 70s or early 80s. I don't know when that was.
In the 80s.
Is in the 80s, yeah. So it's there haven't been many senior students who have emerged since that time, and I think it's because we haven't had that facility to support the nurturing and growth, over time. So super excited for this. Again, there's a link in the package or about the packages here. If you can, whatever you can give is great. Maybe we'll end with just 1 or 2 more questions and then click off here. We got about 10 minutes to go. Bruce, I wanted to just ask, I know this is something that you care deeply about and the center will allow you to do. There's some teachings about death and dying and transition. And those are topics that in the West aren't, something we shy away from, but a lot of people will come into spiritual practices either through some type of trauma or old age, or their energy starting to wane after 50, they hit Tai Chi. Could you just talk a little bit about the role of the center to help people who are entering new phases or trauma or getting old? Because I think that's a really important role for the center in the future that you care about.
Well, central point is that when my phrase, you can't bake a cake without an oven. Well, we have a cake, and what we're trying to do now is that people, let's just say, contribute so that the center can actually, work. Okay, here's a few things. I would expect that in time, some other things that will happen in the center, which I haven't done, is that getting what Taoist regenerations programs were, where you take people who are over 60 and you do the things that can make them younger. So that's one thing. The next big subject is death and dying, and that breaks down to a few categories. The first one is just to get people so that when the time that they're going to die, they can be cool and they can be calm and they can be steady. Because when a person dies and they're not cool and they're not calm and they're not steady, the only thing that can be said is that they're going to be in for a really rough incarnation. Okay, everything that they're having a problem with is the exact environment they're going to end up with, and it's going to be kind of miserable. The third thing is that there are ways that, just as they have all these practices in Taoism, what you do while you're alive, they actually have practices you do when you're dead and you're a non-corporeal spirit, about how you can keep progressing until you can go where you can go. There is also that with death and dying, that especially for some members of the community who will be, loved by all, as the phrase goes, there are things to where when the person dies, there are practices the whole group can do that uplift the whole group. That actually energy of that person dying and passing on can actually be of help to all the people who come and do those things with that person at the time of death. So, and there's some other stuff about how there are ways of practicing, that there are special things that you do that enable you to take what you have learned or gotten in this life and actually maintain it. So when you go to the next place, it doesn't dissipate or it doesn't pass through the barrier. So those are things related to death and dying. And the reason why I know that I'm going to have a big thing about doing this at one point is very simple. When I first came back from China, back in '87, my focus and what I wrote my PhD on was essentially about the coming health crisis, which we have all now seen for the past 20 years has, gotten pretty grim. But the next thing that's going to start happening is going to start happening pretty soon is the dying wave. When you're going to get all these baby boomers are going to start dying. They're just going to start dying and dying again and dying again. And I believe practices that will make that transition better for a lot of people are very, very valuable because, it's kind of hard to say. Right now, most people running around, if I say, okay, tell me 5 people, even 3 people who you were with them when they died. You're going to have a hard time finding a lot of people like that. But very soon, everybody's going to know people like that because they're going to be dropping like flies. It's just demographics. You just take what a size they are, people reach a certain age and they go. So I think things that can help prepare for that and so that people can help prepare others who are their friends, relatives, and whatever, so that they don't get so shocked by that scene. I think that's a very nice thing to do.
Okay, great. Paul, do you have any last questions that you wanted to sneak in here?
I did see one that was about the training circle. Somebody who's been using the training circle, opening and closings material, said they were really getting a lot out of it and asked about a follow-up. And I wanted to let you know that there is a follow-up next year. It's going to be a 2-year program on something called God's Playing in the Clouds. It's kind of the jewel in the crown of Bruce's qigong system. So the question I kind of wanted to tag into that is that one of the things that makes God's unique is that it's a bridge between qigong and meditation. And Bruce was mentioning how one of the unique facets of Taoism, the way he teaches it, is taking something that is beyond ordinary body practices into the realm of spirituality. And God's is kind of one of those places where that gets bridged. And so, Bruce, if you could kind of just talk a little bit about God's and that bridge between something that is ordinary and physical and how it transitions into something more profound and spiritual.
Look, that's all about how you practice. And that's what that program is going to show people how to practice. Look, this is one thing that I think is common sense, but a lot of people don't kind of get it. If something is a multi-layered thing to have you arrive at something, like you build a car, you don't just boom and you get a car. I mean, there's like a lot of pieces that go into it, and then they all gel together and you got a car. To try and, describe individual pieces of it, you're back to the story of, the blind man touching an elephant's foot, his trunk, his leg, and every time he thinks it's something different. Well, it isn't really how it works. It's one integrated whole. That was the qigong my teacher practiced. The only qigong I practice. It is the crown of the jewel of Taoist qigong, and it is also one of the most powerful ways to where you can go from body practice into meditation. Also, one thing I just like to make a comment on. You said in the way that Bruce teaches. Well, first of all, the way that I teach is classic Taoism. Of course, I will have my own individual creativity about how I teach the pieces and the way I do it. But the pieces and the way I go, this is stuff that's been around for 2,500 years. And the nice thing about it's never failed. It always works. And I pretty much try to stick with things I know are going to work. Because, if I were on the other end, I think I'd rather be learning something that has the optimum chance of working than something that has less than that. So I believe, like the Christian thing of do unto others you would have them do unto you, which actually is also in Taoism and Confucianism, that opening and closings are part of God's playing in the clouds. There's other things. And there's also ways that opening and closings in God's goes to areas that are spiritually related. There's no two ways about it. That's about the best I can say. I mean, I'm not the best salesman for my qigong methods.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody that's been on the call today. There's about 262 people at this point that are still on. I really appreciate you sticking around. Again, we've had hopefully after this call, we'll have over 500 people who have donated or have bought one of the supporter packages. Again, Ryan just dropped a link in there. There's so many exciting things happening with Energy Arts. We have this new building. We've got Gods playing in the clouds. Energy Arts Circle next year. We have a new book release. We have 2 new book releases coming up. One on Tao Te Ching, one on Heaven and Earth. So I think there's a lot of momentum. Please go and give what you can. If you have a bigger donation, you can reach out to us through one of the supporter packages that leads you to a link where you can type in your name and we can contact you directly. Before we go, like there's definitely like a water tradition of selling or fire tradition of selling. Like I really believe in what Bruce is doing and what the community can help, how they can help the world in the future. So I feel really good I believe this is a lot of the medicine, this water tradition that the West would be useful to so many people, and they just don't know about this tradition that's out there. So I want to run people through the 5 supporter packages just quickly. And again, you can go on there to check that out. Let me share that page with you. If you already donated or you already know about the packages, then we'll send you a few more emails over the next few days. And just thank you from Bruce and Energy Arts. So these are the 5 packages. The first is a community supporter package. It's just $50. You get 3 of Bruce's audio trainings, and you get those delivered digitally so you can access them anywhere. It's a value of $120. The 5 Elements supporter package is an all-new package that teaches how to practice qigong, tai chi, and different energy arts with the 5 different elements. This is a tremendous value. It's over $700, and you can get into this package for 1 payment of $197 or 3 payments of $67. And I forgot how many hours it is, but I think that the main training is 7 hours. And if you add in the standing qigong and Santi, I think it's like another 10 hours. It's like 17 hours of training. It's a really great value. Plus you get everything in the first package. So this is a great value, all new package. We've never offered this before. The third package, we have an A and a B. The A is a Tai Chi Mastery. This is a Yang style form that Bruce created over an 18-month period. This is not available for purchase anywhere, and it's the most advanced, comprehensive training on Yang style digitally produced that I know of anywhere. It's over 50 hours. This is $1,500 or 3 payments of $500. A plane ticket to China and back would be about $1,000, not saying the 10 years of study that would be required. Bruce has all packed it up for you into this set. It's a really powerful training program, no matter what Tai Chi style you teach. We also have a Wu style mastery program that's not here. If for some reason you have this, but you want the Wu style, connect with us on one of the forums or email us, and we can sub out the Wu style for you here if you'd like that as well. We've had a few requests for that we've honored. The next package is the Bagua Mastery Supporter Package. Again, this is over 80 hours. It came from an instructor training. It also includes 8 Bagua palm changes that took 8 years to produce. This training we initially produced in the late 2000s, and we recorded this on tape. And it was an arduous multi-year journey to create this program. And as Bruce would mention, the book itself I think is over 1,000 pages. Is that right, Bruce? Because that came from your blood, sweat, and tears to write.
100.
Yeah. So the book is, it's more like a training manual. I know nothing that exists like this out there. This is $1,500 or 3 payments of 500. And both this and the Tai Chi Mastery Program also includes the 5 elements and the package 1. The 2 other higher level packages are the support of the Tao packages. I'm glad to say we've had a few people come in on these packages, and this is really going to make the difference. This is going to help us to build, you know, real live production studio, so that while Bruce is teaching, not only can we capture these lineage teachings forever, but also that we can live stream this. So you could be in Russia or Asia or Europe or California or New York and get like subscription access to his live teachings. Super excited about that. It's about the floor, the roof. We have the building. That's what a lot of these funds are going to be used for. You also get a private 4-day event with Bruce next year. And it also includes both the Yang style package and the Bagua package. It also includes all events that Bruce is doing for the next 2 years. So if you want to do a deep dive into Bruce's trainings, this is just a phenomenal way to both go all in on the lineage and what Bruce is doing and really make the next 2 years a year of training for you. So if this is in resonance with you, like, we'd love to have you take one of these Support of the Tao packages. And then the last package we have is just the benefactor. I like the idea of, in the Renaissance, they were patrons, people who had made their money in different forms. I think the modern equivalent of this is you sold your company for, I don't know, 10 million, 100 million, a billion, or you, whatever, you inherited it, you won the lottery, however you got it, but you have an overabundance and you want to help us. We haven't had anybody take this package yet, but I am remaining hopeful that somebody will show up and really support us. And it gets you 5 years access with Bruce, everything in the previous package. But really, this is less about what you get and more that you have the ability to give, and you just feel it's like the right thing to do. It's yours to do. It's not about like a trade-off or anything like that. It's just like, look, you have an overabundance and you feel like this is yours to do and that you want to help out, and you resonate with the mission of Energy Arts and the mission of Bruce. So if you can do it, do it. You know, if I could do this, I would. Not in a position to, but again, our hope is that somebody will come in, and if it's that much more overabundance, we definitely have a vision to have another school in Europe and some satellite schools, but even just one of these would help us to complete the build out and restoration, so that, you know, we can basically make this an incubator, an accelerator for Taoist training in the West, really just help more people, to help people go through the stress, the anxiety, help live better lives and become healthier. That's kind of the 5 packages. The link is in the chat box here. You're going to get, probably, forgive me, you'll get 3 emails in the next few days unless you've purchased. One will be a 24-hour tomorrow, and then you get a couple closing emails on Thursday, because we're basically going to close down this round and these offers. So if you haven't given, I know it's Christmas time, make this a gift, do it with whatever excess you have. It'd be greatly appreciated. Paul, did you have anything else that you want to say about the offers or anything here? Or?
Yeah, sure. Actually, real quick, you know, sometimes when you see things through a computer screen, it just feels like it's something other than. And I want you guys to know, if you're out there watching this, it's my sincerest hope that I am actually going to meet you face to face, that you're going to be there at some of these trainings with Bruce, and if Rich is there at a training. You know, this is a very real community of people who are doing some practices that really mean a lot to us, and hopefully to you too, if you've been exposed to some of the stuff that Bruce teaches and seen benefit from it. So, you know, please do tie in with us however you can. And if you're on the ground in Boulder, Denver, you may know something that I don't, and you can help with this establishment of the training center. So, you know, if you have special skills, if you are an architect, if you're a builder, if you have connections in Boulder, Denver, whatever you see for the future of energy arts, we're all collectively forming this vision. So participate, join in, and I really hope to meet you in person, and stay in touch with us. If you find value in some of these packages, that's great, because it's literally going to help me lay some drywall. So, I hope that you guys, find value in all the packages Rich was just talking about. And hopefully, you'll be standing on the floor that it builds sometime soon, and we'll get a chance to meet. So thanks for tuning in tonight, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, and I'll just say just one more few words, and then we'll let Bruce conclude. But we'll try to, what we're going to do also is we'll be sharing the journey as we do the build out, and we'll be doing more Facebook Lives and just showing you the journey as we go along. We want to bring everybody along, and we want to bring in all kinds of diversity, and we want to basically make this a community effort. So we're super excited, and we'll kind of keep you updated as we're going along with this whole effort as we build out the center. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Bruce, for any last words.
All I can say is thank you. We'll appreciate you getting as many packages as possible so that the building can get done. Again, this is everything that we're doing now is going to be for the people who are attending it. That's primarily what it's about. So all I can say is thank you very much. Have a good Christmas. Christmas, the time of good cheer and generosity. So I hope it follows you no matter where you are. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everybody.